What would you do if you realized you weren't alone in the house you just rented? It's 11:43 at night. You're in the middle of the mountains, no signal, and there's a hot cup of coffee in the kitchen. You didn't make it. This isn't a movie. It happened to me. It was August. I was 28 years old, and I needed to disconnect. I work in London at a PR agency. Meetings, screens, constant noise. I hadn't slept properly in months, or as my therapist said something that stuck with me. You need real silence, not the silence of headphones, the other kind. So I booked a countryside house on Airbnb. 3 nights, alone, in a small village in the Peak District. 40-something residents, no pub, no signal. The host's name was Marcus. He replied to messages quickly. Polite, thorough. He sent me a PDF with instructions for the heating, the bathroom cistern, the router. Everything very organized. Too organized, I thought later. So I arrived on a Friday afternoon. The key was exactly where he said it would be, under a flower pot by the front door. The house was beautiful. Old stone walls, wooden beams, a huge fireplace in the living room. It smelled clean, like lavender soap, like someone lived there. But I didn't think anything of it. I unpacked, made myself some dinner. Scrambled eggs and toast, nothing fancy. Opened a bottle of red wine I'd brought from home. I sat in front of the fireplace. For the first time in months, I actually breathed. The first night was perfect. The second night, things started getting strange. I woke up at 3:17 in the morning, without knowing why. That kind of waking that doesn't come from noise, but from something your body detects before your mind does. I stared at the ceiling. I listened. Nothing. I told myself it was the unfamiliar silence, that I wasn't used to it. That in London there's always something. Cars, neighbors, pigeons on the windowsill. I went back to sleep. But the next morning when I came downstairs for breakfast, something stopped me dead on the last step. There was a mug on the kitchen counter, with coffee residue inside, still warm. I hadn't made coffee. I drink tea in the mornings, always. I touched it, warm. My brain searched for explanations. Had I left it there the night before and forgotten? Had the warmth from the wood stove kept it that way? I convinced myself yes, because the alternative was too much. And that afternoon I went for a walk through the hills. 2 hours. The pine trees, the smell of damp earth, a tiny stream I almost missed between the rocks. I came back with muddy boots and a slightly lighter soul. I stepped inside the house, took off my boots at the entrance, and then I saw it. In the entryway, there were 2 pairs of boots, mine just taken off, and another pair. Men's boots, walking boots, with fresh mud on them. I froze. They weren't part of the decor. They weren't there when I arrived. They were real, large, dirty. I ran upstairs to my bedroom, locked the door, pushed the nightstand against it, grabbed my phone, no signal, 0 bars. I looked out the window. Marcus's car was nowhere to be seen, but there was no one visible outside either. I tried connecting to the Wi-Fi to send a message. The router wasn't responding. I sat on the floor for 40 minutes in complete silence, back against the bed frame, listening to every creak of the old wood. Nothing. No movement, no sound of footsteps. Then I made the worst and best decision of my life at the same time. I stepped out of the bedroom. I checked every room, the upstairs bathroom, empty, the storage room, empty, the living room, empty, the kitchen, empty. and then I found the door. At the back of the kitchen, behind the pantry, there was a small door, almost hidden, painted the same color as the wall. It was slightly ajar. I hadn't opened it in 2 days. I didn't even know it was there. I pushed it with my foot. Stairs, going down, a basement. I didn't go down. I couldn't. I grabbed my suitcase without folding anything, snatched my bag, my car keys, and ran out of that house. I drove 40 minutes through mountain roads with no signal until one bar appeared in the corner of my screen. I called 999. I explained everything: the mug, the boots, the door. They took a while to arrive. Rural area, pitch black night, complicated roads. But they came. What they found in that basement never appeared in any public report. Marcus denied everything. He said the boots were his, that he'd left them there weeks ago, that the basement door was always slightly open, that he'd made the coffee himself when he stopped by to check the heating that morning before I came downstairs. Airbnb closed his profile within 48 hours. No charges, no trial. But I know what I know. Someone was in that house while I slept. Someone made coffee in my kitchen. And someone came in with muddy walking boots through a door I didn't know existed. And as I drove away down that dark road, hands shaking on the steering wheel, I looked in the rearview mirror. The lights in the house were still on. I had switched them all off before I left. Since then, every time I check into somewhere new, the first thing I do is look for the doors that aren't in the photos. Because sometimes the most dangerous thing about a place isn't what you can see. It's what someone didn't want you to find. Has something like this ever happened to you while traveling alone? Tell me in the comments.